Get your stinking rat out. It's late night large.
Hello and welcome to a very special Lockdown Large Extra Time. It's very special, of course, because there's been some very big news that's developed this week. On the day we're recording, this news has just broken. So we're actually foregoing, just for this edition, hopefully, we're foregoing our time limit because there's so much to unpack about this story. So no more 20-minute time limit. So it's going to be considerably longer. Hopefully that's okay with you guys. This is on the day when Jose Mourinho has been sacked, which you would imagine would be the top thing to talk about. We're not even going to mention that. Maybe next week we'll have a discussion on, does Jose Mourinho have a future in elite club football? But this week, of course, the words on everybody's lips in the football world are the breakaway European Super League. You might remember, like the foul mess that just wouldn't flush last year, it's been discovered still sticking in the toilet bowl, and it's now resurfaced in all its hideous glory. And it's been revealed, that 6 clubs in England have, we'll discuss exactly how badly we consider this to be, but some might consider it treacherously, have effectively signed agreements that they are happy for this idea to go ahead. They've given it their green light. Effectively, the best place to start, Mike, I guess, is for anyone who's not completely familiar with it. What exactly have these clubs signed up for when you say European Super League? What's your understanding of what that means?
Yeah, so basically what it is they want their own league, if you like, to be played in the middle of the week with just the, and again, biggest clubs in the world, the people that have the biggest fan bases, you like, or that will generate the most funds. So the biggest in that respect, clubs in the world playing their own league, their own midweek league, if you like, with obviously an overall champion at the end. So my understanding is that it's certainly for now is to be played alongside their own domestic leagues, but it's certainly, and we'll touch on it, it certainly looks like it will be instead of other competitions rather than as well as.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Mike.
So they're probably saying they're domestic leagues, but they've got their own kind of competition that they control the finances for, basically. That seems to be the motivation to me. You got a different take on that?
I definitely, I think there are other things at work, but I definitely think you're right. I think we're being quite foolish if we look too far outside the motive of. Maybe I'll come back to this, but I'll try not to dwell on it too much, Mike. But I find it quite instructive to look at this in the context of capitalism, because it is effectively, without going into too much detail, for anyone who's watched the normal late night large, I personally am completely opposed to the capitalist model anyway. And one of the big reasons, which any reader of Marx or anyone who actually understands how it functions knows, is that the biggest issue with the capitalist system, why it ends up failing badly and eating itself, is because as soon as you get a successful enterprise within a capitalist model, rather than improving their service or streamlining their costs or doing anything to make themselves more appealing, what they will actually seek to do is to create their own monopolies and destroy competitors, because that's easier. It's easier to do that. So capitalism as a whole, it tends to, its biggest benefactors tend towards monopolies. That's what they want to do. That's what they seek to do. And to me, this is just another example of it. I know it's easy to say that, but it is a pattern in the capitalist system.
Well, it's easy to say that because it's true.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what we're seeing here is the most successful capitalist football clubs, as in they generate the most money, they have the biggest fan base, generate the most merch sales, television rights, trophies, kind of secondary, but that helps. Historical trophies, I guess. So their standing has led to them being the richest, and as the richest, they're falling back to the capitalist mindset of don't really like this competition thing. I mean, look, even Leicester won one of our big prizes a few years back. They don't have any right to do that. Who are they in historical terms? So yeah, this can be seen as effectively a pretty obvious example again of the capitalist mindset predisposed towards a monopoly. So out of the many things we need to unpack about this, Mike, I mean, I'll go straight in for the obvious thing before we dance around the other little bits and pieces around the outskirts. But the first thing to say is, first of all, English football, I'm not sure on what planet we deserve 6 clubs, and yet there are only a maximum of 3 from other declared countries' interests. I'm not quite sure how that works in terms of elite European super leagues, but
you are, aren't you?
yes, I'm
You are sure how it works.
I'm trying not to be too cynical.
No,
but,
no. I don't think there's such a thing as too cynical, is it? It's call it what it is.
Okay.
Call it what it is.
Okay, so if we go from the perspective that England does in no way, if there was such a thing as a European Super League, that was actually justified, and the majority of the football watching public actually really, really wanted it and was pleading for it to happen, there is no way on earth that you would immediately go, right, 6 clubs from England, we definitely need 6 clubs. I mean, there's just no way. So
no,
I'm looking at
but it's not done on. I mean, typically it will happen anyway, and it will be the best teams, but it's not done on who's the best teams, is it?
No, it's not. No.
But even if you looked historically, you might say,
yeah, I was.
Okay, England, we'd have 2 or 3.
Yes. So here's my problem with all of this. So if we look at
just one problem.
No, sorry. This particular problem. Sorry, I'll be a bit quicker. And it's incredible all the stuff that's wrong with this. The 6 clubs. So the top 6, the big 6 of England that have put themselves forward and signed up and said, yes, we're for this. Now, having just checked Wikipedia, in terms of historical honours, as in gross number of honours, they do fit the bill. So they are the 6 most trophy heavy clubs just in football history in England. So, we're talking about Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal and Spurs.
Okay. I'll stop you on that though.
Okay.
You're talking obviously domestically, aren't you?
I was about to say, Mike, it's a very good point. My argument would immediately be, on what basis are particularly Tottenham? What on earth are Tottenham doing in there?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, and you may have information there. Then you take Liverpool and United out of it, and you've got City, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Tottenham.
Yes.
Now, 4 clubs there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they had an average of 1 appearance in a Champions League final between them, right?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, that's what I was coming to. Is if you're talking about big, well, surely we should be talking about European honours. How many European Cups have Arsenal won?
Well, it's a European Super League, right?
Yeah. In other words, you would imagine, yes, that they would have prestige in Europe. The closest you could, yes, we know Chelsea won the Champions League in 2012, so I guess that would qualify them. But on what, but and Spurs have some European trophies, as do Arsenal. Neither of them have European Cup. So why aren't Aston Villa in there? Why aren't Aston Villa represented? They've won a European Cup. Why aren't Nottingham Forest in there? They've won 2. So, on that basis, it's like, I'm not sure where the prestige, not to mention Manchester City. On what basis are Manchester City in there?
You know why.
We know why. I'm labouring a point here. But if we go back to 2008 and prior to 2008, Man City have next to no history to speak of that would even have them in the conversation about a top 6. So yes, all the money in the world does make a difference, but still, where's the European history and legacy? Even recently, they've bought the most expensive players they can, and they've got the most expensive coach, and they still haven't won a Champions League title. They're in the mix. Spurs, Arsenal never won the European Cup. There they are in the mix. Chelsea only won it in 2012. There they are in the mix. And I hate to come back to it, Manchester United and Liverpool, the only clubs in there with genuine European prestige. And again, you've got to feel really sorry for Nottingham Forest and Villa. Why aren't they in there if it's about European legacy?
It's not. The thing is, this is the thing though, isn't it? I don't think anyone said that that's what it's about, have they?
Do you not think that that's the implication though? I mean, they're not going to say to us, this is about the biggest clubs, richest clubs, the most money to make even more.
Are they not?
All right.
I mean, they might not try and sell it that way, but I don't think they've been very kind of.
I like how you I like how we were going to be like, let's try and make this as balanced as we can, despite how hard it's going to be. And as soon as
I did tell you,
talk without cynicism, you're like, hang on, and you bring it straight.
I did tell you that I was going to find it really fucking hard to do that.
Okay.
And I have no idea how I was going to do that. I said that.
I guess this is just my excuse to rip the piss out of these wannabe clubs. But let's get right down to it. This is about the 6 richest clubs in England wanting to cut every other club adrift to ensure that they keep getting the riches swirling their way. And of course, a cynical mind would take a look particularly at Spurs and Arsenal and be like, oh, yeah, I can see exactly why you want to be in a European Super League.
Of course. As we know, it's about making the rich richer.
Yeah, it's absolutely nakedly, unashamedly in favour of monopolistic wealth redistribution to the already wealthy.
And I think they have said, haven't they? They have come out and said that, motivation for some of them at least is based on the fact that they generate the most of the income.
Okay, yeah.
Why shouldn't they have, and I'm not saying that's right, but I don't think they're particularly hiding that, are they, as a factor?
No. In fact, we'll come back to it because I think there's a good reason why they're failing at hiding that. Because I'm sure that they needed really to hide that to make it seem as if it was something for the fans or for the game. Mike, is it just me, or so? One thing that interested me when I heard this initially was, this sounds like a plan cooked up by a 10-year-old on a sugar binge. Do you know what I mean? So you remember when we used to play FIFA or ISS, whatever, when we were kids, and you'd always end up picking either the best countries or the best clubs because you wanted all the best players in your team to play against all the best players. So you'd know all the players and they'd be the best and it would just be great. And then when you were kids, you just, you'd fantasize about, imagine if there was a competition where only the best teams get to play each other all the time. But then you get to like 14 or 15 and you just grow up, and you realize actually that would probably be shit.
Well, I think, to be honest, what we already have that to what I would call an acceptable kind of level anyway. That's exactly what the Champions League is it not? Okay, yes. So you might not have necessarily if you were talking about England, we're blessed with four, four richest clubs every year, but you can pretty much guarantee three of them probably will be. And then, someone else who's earned their way into it, so they might not be the biggest or richest club if there's another club representing England, for example, any given year. But they'd have earned their place. They would have been, you can't say they're not good enough to be there because they earned it through a whole season the previous year. So I think, you're right. But we already have that. I don't know what.
Okay, maybe I worded it a little bit clumsily. So it's more like if a child is watching the Champions League and they're seeing like Juve, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Barcelona, and then they're like, "Oh, why do the early games have to be so boring? I just want to watch these games all the time." So that's what it's more like, and it seems as if it's been conceived of that. It's like, oh yeah, when you were kids, you just wanted to watch all the big games. But it's the same old thing, isn't it? It's I know this sounds like a stretch, but it's almost like a drug addiction. If you recreationally use drugs, they can be amazing. The second that you're using them all the time, you lose what made them special. Maybe drug addiction's a bad way of putting it, but if you okay, so let's say if you have an amazing meal and it's just absolutely the most perfect, and you just suddenly you start thinking, oh, that's so great, I'm going to have it every day of the week, and pretty soon it's like, hang on, what did I ever really like this? It's because of the comparative rareness, let's say rarity of these games. When we say rarity, there's usually 2 or 3 of them at least a season, but rarity as in there may only be 2 or 3 a season and no more. That there's such a compelling spectacle, you're going to get pretty fucking bored of Juventus Barcelona and Real Madrid Liverpool if it's twice a season played once every week versus
you say that does anyone get bored of like big derbies in England, or does anyone get bored in Spain when Real Madrid and Barcelona play each other?
You've done a pretty good devil's advocate job there, but obviously the big thing is, well, how many teams are going to be in this league? That's the thing. If it's only 12, 14 teams, that's going to get boring very, very quickly.
Well, it's not. This is the thing, isn't it? Because they'll stay in their domestic leagues. It's not like they'll only ever play those teams. So my understanding of that is you've got the 12 who have put themselves forward as the founding members, right? And by the way, I think there's some big financial benefit for being a founding member as well. In the region of I read in the region of 3.5 billion they're being given to support their infrastructures to make this work. And there's some sort of COVID relief thing it's been labelled or something, whatever it is, right? Basically, they're getting shitloads of money for doing it, as well as obviously all the extra money they'd make during the season. I might not have numbers exactly right. I don't know, just what I've seen, and I think what they want to add. I'm sure that I saw they want to add another 8 teams to that, and have 20 in there, and do I can't remember what they said, but basically they want to do, it'd be like a Champions League competition, but just with a bigger group.
I have heard that. Effectively, what they're planning this as like you say, as effectively a replacement for the Champions League where they're in charge of where the money goes.
Yeah.
So
so basically that's it. And I'm sure, again, I might be wrong, but I'm sure I saw this either on, I can't remember where, but they were talking about there still being some way of qualifying for it, like there is the Champions League. So effectively, they're trying to make their own version of the Champions League, which, if successful, and I'm not saying it, I think it will be, but if successful, will effectively just fuck over the Champions League.
Yeah, well,
and UEFA will just be fucked.
Just an attempt at competition.
Yeah, basically what it is you've got those teams that always qualify every year, regardless. But they're the money spinners anyway, and they are likely to be the big money makers. But that's in that respect, in fairness, for quite some time.
But that's not true, though, is it? You say always qualify, but again, Spurs and Arsenal.
No. I'm not saying they're the teams that do always qualify. I'm saying they will always qualify. Okay. That's what the European Super League is. And then there's space for other teams that aren't founding automatic entries to qualify.
Yeah.
But they will say, so basically what they're saying is, well, hang on, we're the big teams. We're going to make the most money anyway. If it was us every year, that's how you're going to max out money. By having the teams that are going to bring in the most. And they're not necessarily wrong in saying that, but wrong for saying that, but maybe what they're saying isn't incorrect. And then they say, look, but also you can have 5 or 6 other teams that, they can earn their way in each year. They could be different teams, but we're always in it. We're always in it. And then you've got I think they want a couple of groups, basically. Top 3 from each group qualify. There's your quarterfinal. Then you have your semi and final or whatever for like your trophy at the end. That's my understanding of what it is. That may not be totally right. It may change before or again if they look to do things. Then maybe they look to compromise in some way, shape, or form. They realise that actually, if they do want to get something off the ground, they're going to have to concede something. They might compromise. I don't know. Do you think it's going to get off the ground?
No, I'll come back to that later.
All right.
There's a lot of politics about it. Speaking of politics, this won't be the first time I related to this, Mike. But so, do you remember? And just hold your tongue because till I get to the end of the analogy, I was going to compare this to something that kind of happened during the whole Brexit debate. So, do you remember when effectively the argument was from the government, we don't want to follow the EU's rules, right? And then the counter argument was, so what are we going to follow the America's rules then? No, we're not going to follow America's rules. But the WTO rules are a lot worse. Oh no, we're going to make our own rules. Do you remember that was a kind of a thing like, oh no, we're going to have British standards and we're going to make British rules that everyone else is going to abide by? This kind of reminds me of that, because what you're doing is by sacking off the Champions League, effectively, UEFA and FIFA are the governing bodies. So FIFA governs international standards and UEFA governs continental standards. So UEFA's framework allows these teams to compete in the Champions League. By removing yourself, it's like saying, no, we don't like UEFA's rules anymore, and we definitely don't like FIFA's. So yeah, we're just going to, and people are like, but what governing body are you going to abide by? No, we're just going to create our own rules. You're going to create your own rules for a competition, and you think that has any legitimacy. So that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, it kind of is like that, isn't it? And I think that's what they're doing. They're creating their own hierarchy. They have their own ESL board or president and executives and whatever.
Do you know who I heard it's going to be funded by? Apparently JP Morgan is going to be funding a lot of it. Yep. Vulture capital.
Does that surprise you?
No, not at all. Dirty money all the way, running all the way through it. I will get to the answer to your question, Mike. I was going to dig in around through a few of the motivating aspects of this that I've heard discussed and that I'd kind of worked out myself, and wondering what you thought about it. So some of the things I've heard, so if we just ignore the obvious that it's just very extraordinarily rich organizations wanting to pull up the drawbridge and say, no, we just want the money being shared around us big boys. Some of the other catalysts, let's say, some of the other catalysts I've heard discussed. One of them was the effect of the pandemic, which means that the richer clubs have lost potentially, I think, over £1 billion during this COVID lockdown period because of lost gate receipts, merchandise, that kind of thing. So big shortfall in income. And it's easy to say Crimea River, but because they're so rich, but bear in mind the rich clubs also suffer more in terms of how much money they've lost because of the vast gate receipts, etc., that they get compared to smaller clubs. So that was one of the things I heard. Another thing I heard was yes, you mentioned earlier, the Champions League reorganization. They're just very disgruntled at that, even though they signed up to it. These clubs have signed up to the reorganization. I don't think the reorganization was very popular anyway. But you know, the Champions League, UEFA seems to feel like they have to do some kind of reorganization every 10 years, otherwise they look like they're being lazy or something. So there was that was ventured as a potential motivation. Here's an interesting one, Mike, and I thought this and the next one I'm going to speak about was potentially the biggest. The American influence, American ownership influence. So if you look at the majority, or well, most of, I think the teams that are involved in this on the English side, American ownership or American influence. Arsenal apparently have American influence on their ownership. We obviously have the Glazers. Spurs apparently have some kind of American influence. Liverpool obviously have John Henry and FSG. Now, the reason why I say American influence is we've heard this before, haven't we, from America? Because in America, they don't like relegation. You know, they don't like the idea of promotion and relegation. Even in the MLS, I don't think they have relegation, do they? It's just a single league, and if you finish bottom, you finish bottom. That's it. There's no additional consequences. So their idea is, well, why do we have to have relegation? Well, because that threatens, you know, our operating model, and that threatens our income. Why can't we just all get along and, you know, all stay in the same league no matter what? So there's that argument that the big American influence, the franchise stuff, the World Series that only involves countries from that one nation, that kind of thing. So because as well as the no relegation thing, that also brings the whole World Series into it, because this would be called a European Super League, despite having clubs from, what is it, only 3 countries so far?
Well,
only 3 countries are giving it the green light. Italy, Spain, and us, isn't it? So far. And the other big thing that I'll mention, Mike, and then I'll let you talk about what your understanding of it is I think probably the most likely that this ridiculous idea is again, I'll bring it back to Brexit. Do you remember the no deal Brexit bluff that we eventually saw was a bluff the whole time? There was never any intention to have a no deal Brexit. The idea was to scare all the opponents of Brexit witless, thinking that there was going to be this catastrophe and we had to just get on bended knee and take any scraps that were given to us to avoid no deal. And then there was an appalling deal and we breathed a sigh of relief. And then we looked at it and we're like, we've been mugged off here. To me, this seems like another bluff. I don't think, personally, I'll come back to it, but I don't think there's any conceivable way this ridiculous idea can work. But I think that they have to treat it seriously, because a bluff has to look serious to have any real impact on your negotiating partner being UEFA. So what do you think of all of those, Mike? Are any of those, is that barking at the wrong tree, or?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you can literally just blame America on that part, that influence, like for their no relegation thing. I mean, it's the clubs are from all around the world. I don't think they've looked at the American model and gone, we have to use this. They've just gone, well, yeah, we'll play in every year, we'll make money. I don't think they.
No, but I know, but what
it might be something that
the American mindset was probably driving forward the idea. I'm not saying they'd be the only ones who think it was good.
I don't know. I think it's easy just to have a dig at the Americans for whatever. But no, look, I don't know. I don't know about that. But you know, possibly. I guess. I mean, yeah, maybe. But what was the last thing you said there?
The last thing was the idea that this would be, it's a bluff, it's a bargaining tool.
Yeah, what do you think they want?
Well, it's well established that they don't like the fact that UEFA takes, I think it's 3.3 billion a year in for the Champions League, and that they disperse, I think, around about 2 billion. So not a huge proportion of it to clubs. And obviously then presumably these clubs think it's too equitably distributed, and their argument would be, well, everyone's paying the money because they want to watch clubs like ours. They're not paying it to see Shakhtar Donetsk.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. I know what they're saying, but what I mean is that what you think they want? So they're basically the whole thing is just to bluff UEFA into giving them more of the money.
I think it's a strong arm.
And you think that's all they really want?
No, but okay, look at it from this perspective. Now we get down to the nitty-gritty. There are going to be blockbusting consequences for this decision if they follow through with it. We've already heard about them. So let's quickly go through them, Mike. We've already heard the UEFA president has confirmed that their understanding is there will be a FIFA ban on any players appearing in this clubs in this Super League. There will be a ban on them representing their own countries in international tournaments sanctioned by FIFA. So that means the European Championship, that means the World Cup. Sorry, I think UEFA managed the European Championship, but it means the World Cup effectively. There's also very strong talk that these clubs, because you said earlier, they effectively want to rival the Champions League and continue in their domestic leagues. Well, the Premier League has come out and effectively said that they're considering any and all ramifications, which could mean expelling the clubs. Now, I understand what you're going to say in the terms that the Premier League does not have the same threat level, or what's the right word, collateral. They do not have the same strength of collateral as FIFA does. FIFA saying that international players would be barred from appearing in the World Cup. That is a huge sanction that many players would consider beyond the pale. That could make the difference. The Premier League saying, go ahead, do it, see what we do to you, doesn't have the same kind of threat level, because the Premier League would just not be nearly as popular without the Big Six.
Yeah, well, this is it, isn't it? This is, you know, you're right. Basically, what's happened is they've come out and they've gone, right, through greed, right? They've come out and said, look, we want to do this because it's going to make us more fucking money. Every year, we're going to make shitloads more money, so we want to do this. And everyone else in the world who would either get shat on as a result or just generally has a clue, it's like, no, this is fucking terrible. And yeah, so that each, I'm sure the domestic leagues in the other countries have probably imposed sanctions or try to or whatever. But you're right, these clubs and their board now, or the European Super League board. So that I think the old Perez in Real Madrid. He's the chairman. One of the Joel Glazer's vice chairman, and someone from Juve is vice chairman, I think. But so yeah, they've got their own. Do you know what I mean? But they're going to look at that, and they're going to go to within their own clubs as well. So as a unit, but also each individual club will look at that and go, domestic league's not going to do shit. They're not going to do shit. What are they going to do? Like relegate us?
I think
do they not want money anymore?
Well,
how much of the Premier League's like income, especially at the moment, is generated by those 6 clubs?
Sorry, Mike, just to quickly jump in on a factual note, they did technically relegate Juventus before for the Calciopoli scandal. So
yeah, okay, I'm aware.
I get it.
That's one club from one league.
That's an individual club. Yeah, I get what you're
saying. Serie A, they're not going to turn around and say AC into Juve. Nah, don't worry about it. Because by the way, they're 3 of the founding 12.
Yeah,
they're not going to turn around and say, "Nah, fuck off, you lot." Well, what they might do, what I've heard people like Gary Neville call for, is like a point deduction, and say you have a point deduction, or they might try and impose fines and things like that. Let's be honest, fines isn't really going to worry them.
No, point deduction. Well, especially because they're making all this new cash. So yeah. You're right.
A point deduction. Point deduction might hurt their pride, or it might go on to hurt their pride. But the people that make these decisions, they might say, okay, you're going to put a point deduction on us. As a result, we're going to finish 5 or 6 places lower in the Premier League the next year. We're going to receive X amount of million less because of where we finished.
Yeah.
All the rest of our money we'll get doing the same. We'll get the same sponsorship money. We'll get the same gate receipts. Well, when gate receipts happen, we'll get the same Sky money. We'll get the same. But, okay, we're going to get 15 million less for finishing 5 or 6 places below or whatever it is. But we're going to be making 300 million extra by doing this. Who cares? Okay.
But genuinely, do you not think that would hurt them? To me, that's the only solution that would hurt them. And I know what you're saying about it wouldn't hurt them because all they care about is money. But
it would hurt.
No, but Mike, it depends how serious the points deductions are. Say you're talking about each team gets deducted 20 points or something ridiculous. Then you are in potential danger of being relegated. Let's be honest, especially if you're picking up injuries and whatever in the European Super League. Now, imagine if they get relegated. Hold on, listen to me. Imagine if they get relegated and then it turns out that European Super League is a massive flop. There's not the viewing figures because, let's face it, the majority of fans that we seem to hear in the press and whatever, fans groups, supporters trust, are adamantly opposed to it. I mean, I get, that kind of brings me on to the next thing, Mike. Who is the demographic for this new league? Who's going to watch it?
Well, what they're saying is that, and the reason they're doing it is because they're saying, well, fucking everyone will. Like, this is what people want to see. I'm not saying people won't boycott it. No, I'm saying I'm not saying it's not risk either.
But who do you think will watch it?
Me personally, I think people will boycott it. I'm not saying I think it's going to work or it'll actually end up happening.
Yeah.
And yes, there'll be a risk to these clubs, and say the point deduction is 20 points, and as a result, Tottenham end up in a relegation battle. I mean, you take 20 points off any of those teams at the moment. Top of my head, I don't think any of them get relegated, do they?
No, it would be. But if a club had a particularly poor season owing to the fatigue from the European Super League.
Yeah. But even if they did, and I'm not saying that, of course, there's risk. And yeah, the next season, the European Super League could flop for whatever reason. The clubs will be aware of the risk. But what I'm saying is, domestically anyway, any sanctions or anything that could be imposed on them will seem completely worth the risk for the benefit. If someone said to any club in the Premier League, we're going to take 20 points off you next season at the start of the season, but here's 300 million, every single team would take it.
Do you remember when that actually did happen to Spurs? When they got 12 points deducted and got kicked out of the FA Cup? And then they appealed it, and the points deduction was reduced to about 3 points, and they got reinstated to the FA Cup. So
that's the point.
That could easily happen.
Like you said, the Premier League, just like every other domestic league, it doesn't have the clout to hurt the clubs enough to stop them wanting to do it. FIFA does, because FIFA can then, FIFA could effectively start a fucking riot within these clubs because they turn around and say none of your players will feature in the World Cup. None of your now the clubs may then have to turn around, or the European Super League as a group may have to turn around and offer these players compensation of sorts, financial benefits. And let's be honest, like the clubs, that will speak to a lot of the players. There will be players who will say, okay, so I won't play for like my country again. And I'm not condoning this way of thinking, but there will be players that will say, okay, pay me X amount more money, or give me this big fucking bonus, one-off thing or whatever. And okay, I won't kick up a fuss about not being able to play in the World Cup. There'll be a lot of players that will, though. There'll be a lot of players that will. So that will be a genuine stumbling block for the European Super League to actually get over. That is going to cause them a problem. Now, I'm not saying, I don't think it's necessarily insurmountable, but it will undoubtedly be a much bigger problem than any of the domestic leagues can actually pose on these clubs, because these clubs do hold the power in their domestic leagues.
So you don't think that will be insurmountable to save players?
I don't think
save the players in the peak of their career, that you have lost the ability to play in a World Cup, which a lot of people, that's what they dream of when they start playing football, for a league that is effectively at the moment a pig in a poke.
What I mean is, like I said, it will cause problems. But I mean, I don't think they will feel that it's an insurmountable problem. Are you telling me they didn't consider that? You think what you like about these people, but
you've just said all that's driving this is money, which, to be honest, I'm almost in total agreement with. So if it's only driven by money, you know what money does? Money sees problems as not insurmountable, not because they're being realistic, but because they feel like money will buy anything.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. They'll feel like, and I don't know what their answer is going to be. So FIFA have come out today and said, no, any of your players will not feature in the World Cup. And there'll be players that are sitting there going, even if they didn't really care about whether this European Super League happened or not, a lot of them will be fans of their club, fans of football, so they will care and they will think this is shit. But a lot of them won't. A lot of them will go, look, I'm paid to do a job here. I'll play in whatever competition my club tells me I'll play.
Yeah.
And ultimately they would do that. But then FIFA have come out and said, well, you're not playing the fucking World Cup then. Nearly all of the players, especially at these big clubs that will play for big countries, will turn around and say, hang on a fucking minute. No. What do you mean? You want to bring us into this competition and now I can't represent my country?
Do you think that's...
I didn't sign up for that.
Yeah, do you think that's going to...
But
that sounds like the killer, doesn't it?
That's what I'm saying. FIFA have the power to actually create problems for these clubs because of things like that. But I don't think the European Super League, like, they will have anticipated this kind of backlash, and they would have done a what if. And what I'm saying is, to them, they will feel like it's not insurmountable, because for them, the answer will be throw money at it.
Yeah, no, very true. Okay, Mike, it's interesting because the driving forces behind this, you alluded to earlier. Let's just mention a couple of the luminaries that have been credited as driving this forward, basically because they're the biggest scumbags in the room. So, two ones that I think you've referred to, Joel Glazer, and another interesting one, and Andrea Agnelli from Juventus. Now, I don't know if you saw this, but I saw a quote earlier that really made me laugh. I can't remember who it was who said it, whether it was a representative of UEFA or something, but they said that I believe what they said was that they'd spoken to Agnelli before about this, and he'd clearly told them something different, and then had effectively gone back on his word. And they actually put in the statement something like, I can't I'm paraphrasing here, so don't say it's verbatim, it's just paraphrasing. But they said something along the lines of, I couldn't believe that someone could lie like this, could tell such blatant lies, and be so dishonest in this conversation. And they put Agnelli at the top, like above all the other people who'd been involved in this, that they felt he'd been the most dishonest. But it was just the way they worded it, and I was just thinking, all I could think of was Boris Johnson. Because it sounds, no, but it sounds like exactly the kind of thing that's leveled at Johnson. I can't believe he lied to me, even though he lies to everyone else. So clearly Agnelli has been seen through by a number of people to be especially dishonest.
I don't think, especially when we're talking about money, I don't think anyone would kind of would level an accusation at any of these people that they might be honest at all. Like, nobody, you know what I mean? No, I don't think anyone thinks like,
no. I know.
Here's a bunch of people. Here's a bunch of good people that really care about others and the benefit of football.
Saying, but that sounds a bit like what about you? I'm not talking about ethically, like are they all ethically clean? What I'm talking about is they are basically saying that Agnelli led them to believe something entirely different and then went back on his word at the last minute. So it's a lot different from the others who you can tell are scumbags from the beginning. Joel Glazer, there was never any doubt in any United, me and you were United fans, never any doubt in our heads that a parasitical twat like Joel Glazer was not going to throw it all in on this project. Look, United fans have been saying it from the beginning. All United fans who have more than two brain cells have opposed the Glazers from the beginning. The way they bought the club was a scandal and it shouldn't have been allowed. They've done nothing to demonstrate that they're actually owners that give a shit about if the club collapsed tomorrow, as long as they weren't liable for the debts. Ed Woodward has proven that he's a snivelling little worm who'll just crawl out of the soil, pop his head up when he thinks something's going to go on that he might need to get involved in, and then slithers away again. So Joel Glazer, it's no surprise to hear that he's at the forefront of this, and that he would. Let's face it, Mike. Another thing is, Sir Alex came out, I believe, and basically trashed this idea and said this goes against any principle of sporting merit. I couldn't have achieved what I did with, even like St Mirren, East Stirlingshire, let alone Aberdeen. He couldn't have achieved any of that if this was the format at the time. Reminding everyone what it's about. So Matt Busby said famously, football is nothing at all without fans. And yet this is nothing to do with fans, and completely takes it away from the idea that it's a fan-led thing. So you could argue that Joel Glazer, without making him even more of a figure of hate than he already is, he's effectively the Antichrist of football. His kind should never have been let anywhere near football. And by the way, I include, the family that own Man City, Roman Abramovich. In their own way, these are all parasites. I mean, even Stan Kroenke at Arsenal, Daniel Levy's not entirely clean himself. These people are, you can argue, the worst of us. The best thing you can say about Daniel Levy is he at least seems to give a minor shit about Spurs as a football club, as in their history. Can you say that about the rest of them? I mean, answer me this, Mike. Out of all these people that you've heard that are driving this forward, how many of them would be standing at the club gates if these clubs were in ruins tomorrow because of this idea, trying to figure out ways to save them, as opposed to being straight out the door?
Hang on. Yes.
Apologies for the interruption. I have no idea where Mike is going. I didn't even realize he had an intercom.
I don't know what the fuck's going on there. Bollocks to it.
Is that an intercom or?
Yeah, some sort of.
You forget that you installed an intercom, Mike.
Well, no. I mean, I haven't. Like, I don't know what that is. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I was just making the point, Mike. Do you think any of these people driving this forward, if tomorrow these clubs were in ruins, would any of them be there trying to, save them from financial collapse, or would they be?
No, obviously not.
Off to their tax havens? So this is what we're trying to say, is that the people driving this forward on behalf of your football clubs, because anyone who is a fan of these big six football clubs, 99% of you, I'm sure, are on our side, are completely opposed to this ridiculous idea. All of you, the people who are running your football clubs, would happily piss off tomorrow with their bags of loot if it came to it. They have no emotional attachment to your football club. So I just thought, I'd make that clear, that we're allowing the worst among us to drive this, particularly the fucking.
I don't think anyone kind of has any other thoughts. I think everyone's aware. What I know that there's a statement, or part of a statement anyway, that Joel Glazer made. It just goes to show how you don't know what they're looking to do as well. They might basically, I'll tell you what it is, and you'll see what the problem is. Basically, what he said was, by getting all of the kind of the greatest clubs from around the world or around Europe playing in this Super League, basically giving the fans what they want by giving them, just the best games throughout the season, ensuring world-class competition for everyone to watch, world-class facilities, obviously within these clubs. But the bit that got me was the increased financial support for the wider football pyramid. Now, unless what they're saying is, okay, we're going to take all this money, but we're actually going to give X amount and spread it domestically, in which case, why bother? Why not let it get dispersed as it is?
Yeah.
How is that? How would that? I don't understand. That's either a barefaced just fucking lie, and we're going to feed you some shit and hope you're too stupid to realise that we're just saying nice words that don't mean anything, or maybe they do have some sort of kind of wealth distribution strategy, but it's just on their own terms.
So the usual.
I don't know what they're planning on doing, but I don't know how they can claim to serve the wider football pyramid.
Yeah, it could be that classic billionaire philanthropist, double-edged bullshit about, I'll rampantly evade taxes, but I'll make a charitable donation when I choose to give it to whoever I deem to give it to. And there's bound to be strings attached to it and whatever. So no, I mean, it'd be a shame if Joel Glazer was hit by a car in the next week or so, but So
well, no, I don't know. I don't know if you heard anything else about it, because
no, I don't think
I
I.
haven't. So I don't know if that is just another barefaced lie, like you were talking about.
Hmm.
You know, these businessmen. You know, and you keep drawing kind of you keep drawing it back to and comparisons to politics and whatever, and you know they're all the same. You know, there's once you get to that level of business, and you're talking about, it's all politics as well, isn't it? So, and yeah, and they're all liars. They'll all say what they need to say to line their own pockets, because that's how they got where they are.
Yeah,
You know, and
you could argue some of these directors at clubs and owners are better at PR than most politicians. The way they talk, I mean.
well, they're well practiced at it, aren't they? You know, that one thing you have to say is they don't get where they are in the world if they're not good at that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So hats off to them in
Yeah.
that respect. Feel almost weird saying it, but
Yeah, I wouldn't give them respect.
you know what it is. I am saying, isn't it? This, you know, you have to say, okay, fair play. You're really good at being a cunt,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you know, you still are one. Let's
Yeah.
you
No.
know what I mean, you're just a pretty savvy cunt.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big thing about this, Mike, is obviously the damaging. Aside from the lunacy of what we've already discussed, is just how savagely this would affect the rest of the football pyramid. Because football in England and almost every other country, as far as I'm aware, in Europe, is operated on a somewhat meritocratic basis. You might argue, oh, United and Liverpool so much richer than all the rest. I mean, at least it's relatively clean compared to Chelsea and City. But yeah, all these rich clubs, and none of the smaller clubs can get through. But that's not technically true. I mean, yes, there's massive wealth disparities, but you can still get drawn together on the same field of play, and you have the same ability to give them a bloody nose on a particular day and make yourself heroes. This removes that opportunity. This is saying that no, these clubs are better than everyone else. They say no one wants to watch Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League. Well, Shakhtar Donetsk fans want to watch them, and to be fair, that there are a lot of ordinary fans who want to watch them. Every so often pull Real Madrid's pants down. That's it's part of the charm of football. We love seeing the big clubs. See, this is the thing that these puffins will never admit to. Yes, we enjoy seeing big clubs playing with big players against big players on big nights. What we also enjoy seeing is these same clubs having their pants down. That's part of the everyone loves a great upset. And the idea that they
When
would,
it's not your team, yeah.
yeah, of course, yeah, but well, years later you can look back on it and go, yeah, well done. But you the fact that they would so cynically remove that as a romantic factor in football. Oh no one cares about that. Yeah, fuck off. I saw Wayne Rooney coming out saying that everything needs to be done to protect the pyramid, and that's what it's all about. The pyramid is what it's about. The other thing that they've completely forgotten is it's similar to the Champions League. You could argue the Champions League is a baby, but the umbilical cord leads down to the grassroots of each country. That's where the start of the umbilical cord is. The grassroots feeds up the tiers gradually, closer and closer to the finished article. If you take that European Super League, you're completely severing the umbilical cord. Where are your players coming from? Where's the development? Oh, we're going to train our own at our elite academies. Well, good luck. How many has that produced? How many players have Man City produced in the last decade with one of the most expensive academies in history? Phil Foden.
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
One. No, but I think that's even more reason for them to want to do it, isn't it? Because because again, it'll be about them establishing a monopoly. So there are some of those clubs that do genuinely have and deliver fantastic players and raise them through the ranks. Our club is one of those capable of doing that, and there are others in the world, and some of the other big clubs do that. Not all of them. You make a point, City, for example. You know, they're not known for it, but by having all of this money, they'll be able to, you know, well, I say having all this money, they've already got it. But the other thing is obviously this, you know, legitimate football income. Then, if you like, it's just gonna improve their facilities, improve, you know, and all of the young players. There's going to be there'll be a new goal, won't there? They want to be in there. They'll be able to monopolise all of the best youngsters from around the world. Will be in academies from the European Super League clubs.
Here's another punishment, Mike. What about banning any players who play for Super League clubs, any Super League clubs teams, from being loaned to other clubs in the Football League? That could be a good punishment. Do you think?
It could be, but then all you get is the European Super League clubs. Okay, that's fine. We'll play our under 23s against the other European Super Club under 23s, and they'll get.
But doesn't that negate the whole point of the European Super League? I thought the whole point was you were only playing the very best players against the very best, and if you have to keep.
No. I'm not saying they want to play their under 23s in their actual games. What I'm saying is if you stifle them being able to send out development players to maybe lower Premier League teams or to Championship teams and get them and blood them in that way, they'll say, okay. I mean, what they could just do is say, okay, fine, be a bitch about it. We'll just play our 23s against, you know.
So it's going to be.
We'll just say, okay, we'll just play our under 23s against Manchester United and Juventus and Barcelona and Real Madrid and AC Milan.
European Super League at all levels.
Well, what choice would they have if
those
restrictions got imposed on them? And they could legitimately quite easily turn around and do that, couldn't they?
Yeah. So I tell you what, City particularly, I think you can imagine that they won't really give a fuck at this point because they hate UEFA anyway, don't they? They think that UEFA have some kind of vendetta against them for, you know, financial doping. So, you know, they'll probably love pissing UEFA off. But okay, Mike, are there any other points that you think we haven't covered before I ask you the big question?
No, I don't think so. I mean, probably this is only day one, isn't it? Loads more is going to come out. There's probably stuff happening whilst we're recording. We're not.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a special edition, so we will try and get this uploaded before the normal late night large, lockdown large rather, because it's, you know, it's very timely. It has to be up there in a timely fashion. So here's the final question, Mike. At this point, knowing what we know and knowing how many people are opposed to it, every ex-footballer, fans group, supporters trust, media talking head, newspaper, there was, mind you, someone was being cynical and said if Rupert Murdoch had a share in this, then the newspapers would be bloody groveling and saying how great it was, which might be right, but that's not the case. Every person I've seen who's had an opinion on this is absolutely condemnatory in the strongest terms. My question to you, Mike, is how likely do you think that this European Super League will actually go ahead? Percentage-wise?
I would. Do you know what? It's tough. I would say maybe it might actually be as high as maybe 40%.
Oh, okay.
Because and the reason I don't think it will happen. But the reason I struggle to completely write it off is because of the money involved and the power that comes with it of the clubs involved. The clubs already committed.
That's sad. Yeah.
Hold so much weight in terms of not just their stature and their standing, but their financial clout within world football, that I think it gives them a fighting chance. But
I see what you're saying.
I honestly, with the backlash from the fans, the supporters, the clubs, the other clubs, all of the domestic leagues, FIFA, FIFA, the big one, UEFA, I don't think it will happen.
Okay.
But that's the reason they have the chance is because they are who they are.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Sorry, actually, a couple of things I forgot to mention before I give my opinion. Mike, one of the things I was going to say is a good way to illustrate that, what we were talking about, the grassroots effect, the umbilical cord leading up to the baby of the Champions League level. A great player, if you can name one player that sums that up, is Jamie Vardy. So Jamie Vardy literally came from grassroots non-league football, and he ended up winning the Premier League and playing in the Champions League. So, that story wouldn't even be possible anymore.
Why?
Because we're talking about potentially them being expelled from their domestic leagues, or at least heavily punished, sanctioned, not allowing certain players to join them. We don't know what the penalties are going to be yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I would say,
But how is he going to play in the European Super League? He's not going to, is he?
If there's a player that emerges on that level, City can just buy him, can't they?
Well, yeah, if he wants to give up his international career. And the other thing we didn't talk about quickly, Mike, was also the clubs who haven't given consent at this point. Some of them quite surprising. Paris Saint-Germain. Paris Saint-Germain have not confirmed, even though you'd have thought they would be the archetypal candidates for a European Super League.
I'd have thought they'd have been top of the list, but
you would have thought they would.
Them.
I mean, they piss their own league because they're so rich. They feel like they have a right to buy the Champions League. They're owned by sociopathic Middle Eastern billionaires, very similar to City, and yet, they're not at the front of the queue. They've not said they want to do it. Yeah. And then you look at, maybe they're hedging their bets at the moment, seeing how big the backlash is, and then when the dust settles, probably throw their hat into the ring. But then, other clubs have more of an ethical stance, particularly I'm thinking German clubs. So, Bayern and Borussia Dortmund, for instance, came out, and I think I've said an initial no. I don't think it's an absolutely, probably, I can't imagine Borussia ever saying yes, but Bayern, the problem they have, of course, is in Germany, they have a 51% fan-owned model. So you would actually require the majority of fans to give assent to the idea. I cannot see that happening at all, because as we've said, most clubs you ask, 90% of the fan base is against this idea.
That's why, I mean, you don't want to take anything away from them, because fair play for saying no, but that's why they initially would have had to say no anyway. Yeah. Because they know it wouldn't go. All they do is just create this big fucking rift in their own clubs. If they'd have gone, we'll do that, and then turn around and they can't do it. So
not to mention, obviously, other prestigious European powerhouses, Ajax, clubs like that, they've not given their assent for whatever reason, which raises the question, the opposing question is, how valid is a European Super League if it's missing clubs like Ajax and Bayern Munich? How can you call it a European Super League?
Yeah, and and you're right, and I think that, but again, the powers that be in the newly formed, European Super League boardroom, they'll be aware of this, and they'll have undoubtedly they'll have something up their sleeve to counteract this stuff. You know, they'll have a what if. What if Bayern never say yes? What if we can never get Bayern Munich into it? Like, you know, how the biggest German club, you know, like with world class players, huge in European football. What if we can never get them in because of either their moral stance or, you know, their ownership model? What, for whatever reason, what if we never get them in? How do we then market this still? How do we? They'd have considered these things undoubtedly, because what, you know, greedy, yes.
Stupid, no.
You know, severely lacking in kind of in moral, yes. Like massively misguided moral compasses, but stupid, no.
Yeah, no.
So
fair point. Yeah.
You know, they will have considered these things, and undoubtedly they'll have, you know, and who knows where their benchmark is. So that, you know, they've got 12 huge. Okay, you know, maybe you take out a couple of the English teams out of that, but in terms of financial draw, 12 huge clubs.
Yeah.
But only from 3 leagues. So where do they draw the line?
Yeah, like
they say, you know what? Actually,
the World Series again, isn't it?
We can market this if we get just one big club, but from, you know, if we get clubs from two more leagues or 3 more leagues,
you want the big 5 leagues.
Still market this.
You want the big 5 leagues, don't you? European leagues.
Yeah.
Italy, Spain, Germany, and who am I missing?
Huh?
England, Spain, Italy, Germany. Who's number 5? Strongest leagues. I feel like an idiot now. Who am I missing? Can't be the French league. Wow.
I don't know.
No. Anyway, one more point I was going to make, Mike, as well is, oh God, I've lost my train of thought now. It was quite a good point. Anyway, the percentage that I would give it at this stage, about 20%, I think. But I know what you're saying. I think there's definitely some more tricks up their sleeve. Oh, I know what it was. It was just a quick commentary on Barcelona. So, can I just say, like, how far have Barcelona fallen, right, in the last decade and a half, right? So you've gone from having them being the club that has no sponsor because it's too big for a sponsor, you know, the more than a club, Catalonia's finest. Barcelona, the only massive club in the world with no sponsor, sullying their shirts. And then, you know, gradually the pressure got too much, and then it was, oh, but now it's UNICEF, so it's fine because it's a charity, humanitarian organization. And then, you know, it was kind of slipped under the radar that, oh, well, now they've got sponsors, so they're no longer a special club. But look, they've got Guardiola and their tiki-taka and Messi and you know, this just globe-straddling powerhouse of football that was just more than a club because of the amazing aesthetics and the players and how they made you feel about the beautiful game. And you go a few years down the line, and now they are so much in debt that they are begging to join up for a completely anti-democratic and anti-competitive league to effectively stop themselves going bust. How far have they fallen?
Yeah. I mean, you know, of the clubs signed up, they're potentially the only ones that, I mean, if they didn't do it and they allowed their club to completely go to ruins and to the point where they would disbanded totally, you'd say to them, you could have saved yourselves. So of any of them, and that have an I want to use this term loosely, but that have an excuse for doing it, they would be the ones.
Yeah. Do you think there's...
Bearing in mind that they put them. Look, there's been a lot going on in the world, obviously, global pandemic, etc. But and I wouldn't say they've wholeheartedly put themselves in the situation they're in. But yeah, I don't think that maybe they've helped themselves.
Do you think it was wasn't it that Belland who was their ex-president who everyone hated? Wasn't it? He was forced to stand down, and basically his last announcement was, "Oh, I've signed us up to this Super League." So
yeah,
I don't know how much you can blame him, but the other argument, Mike, that suddenly came into my head was also, are we maybe overthinking, like, are we over complexifying the scenario when really what we should be looking at is a lot of these people that run clubs, literally, they have no real emotional connection to football. They don't watch the old European Cup finals. They don't dream of, like, Solskjaer in '99 or Steven Gerrard in 2005. They don't see these amazing moments and they don't relive them with their friends. That they literally are there looking at the profit sheets, and somebody puts something in front of their nose and says, "Guys, this idea, you're going to play these big hitters, but the thing is, right, you only play them." So we figure, because look at these television ratings for when you guys play each other, it's going to be like the profit's going to be through the roof. And this guy that has no real emotional connection to football, actual football in Barcelona, looks at his club, hundreds of millions in debt, and goes, "Where do I sign?" Do you know what I mean? What I'm saying is that maybe we're overplaying the idea of these Machiavellian schemings where they're like, we can destroy the football pyramid and have it all to ourselves. And in reality, it's just like driven by one or two special interests. And then they say, "Hey guys, do you want some free money?"
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I've never said that they're intent on destroying the whole football league.
But that's but that's effectively what you do when you suggest this idea. And we're suggesting that they were fully aware of the consequences, when in reality maybe they weren't, and they just literally saw the dollar signs and said, "How can I lose?" kind of thing.
Well, that's what I meant about Barcelona being probably, if you're going to accept an excuse from any of these clubs for doing it, you would accept them because they, self-preservation is quite a powerful motivator, isn't it? Like,
yeah. That was what I was trying to make.
So if I was in charge of Barcelona right now, I'd probably do it as well. To be honest.
Yeah, I think they've fallen a long way from their more than a club nostalgia.
Yeah, they have, but I don't think the other clubs or the European Super League powers that be, I don't think they want to destroy domestic football in these leagues. And
no, you're right.
I just think they don't care about it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That's a good place to end it on, Mike. You're right. I think what we need to take out of this is they are not intent on destroying the football pyramid. The bottom line is they just want to have their cake and eat it. So despite the fact we can see that there's going to be blockbusting consequences, and they just will not be allowed to do this in any sense that destroys, like, the Champions League or whatever, all they're seeing it as, we're playing hardball. We want it all. We want to still play in our domestic league, but we want to be in this European Super League too. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was a long discussion, but hopefully, hopefully you enjoyed me and Mike's analyses of what we thought were the things we'd seen and heard about this situation. Obviously, it's developing really fast. We'll try and get this out as quickly as possible. And until next time, we will grow you again, my friends.